little bit to the history of United Kingdom and European Union. In 1992, when UK wanted to join the euro, there was a massive crash of the pound. And many of you will remember it was called the Black Wednesday. And since then, UK never joined the European and Monetary Union, which is the single currency. And this is the second time that we have seen UK, and this time voluntarily exiting. In my opinion, and this is completely personal, coming from two backgrounds. One is from the economics background and the other from international business background. There have been a number of skeptics who have mentioned in the economics field that the European Union is like a one-size-fits-all policy. It's not going to work. It doesn't address individual country problems. In the last 20 odd years that we have seen the Eurozone, we have seen some huge success stories. We have seen huge integration. We have seen the rise of the euro as a currency and its rise against the dollar. So there have been many success stories. So there are two sides of the debate on the economic side, where one group feels it's a great idea, integration is a great idea in modern times. It's one of the most landmark events of modern times that Europe has integrated. UK has been a part of it. And there's another side which says it is not, because it cannot take into account customized country perspectives. So there are debates ongoing, and in the middle of this, we see UK exiting, obviously voluntarily after so many years. It is a bad precedent. I mean, what will happen to the European Union is again a matter of conjecture at this point. It can have huge repercussions on European Union itself. It might set a bad example for some country who feels it doesn't work for them and they would like to leave. In my opinion, problems can be solved even remaining within an integrated Europe. Policies and procedures could have been negotiated better to find solutions to the problem that UK is facing. Simply cutting ties in the manner that it has been may not be or may be detrimental for the future international relations in other countries, in the region, and in many other parts of the world. I think an integrated Europe, including the UK, has a lot of benefits in terms of not only business and trade, but also security, migration, and many other issues. Some of the great minds of the world today and in modern times have been migrants from one country to another. So we cannot undermine the benefits of migration in economic history and in the power of nations. So it is definitely not a bad thing. It's how it is treated, how it is used, and what laws and regulations go around it. Also security. When Europe is integrated, security is much easier to achieve rather than disintegrated nations. So in my opinion, I think lots of work needs to be done and care should be taken that more countries do not fall out of this situation simply because it's not working for them. Because this has been one of the most unprecedented successes in many ways of modern times. That's all for me.
Thank you. I'm fascinated to hear views from around the room because the views that I had leading up to the referendum and after the referendum were very much reflective of the kind of people that I mix with. I tend to mix with middle class, well-educated people, and I know, I think, one of the people I spoke to who voted leave. Everybody in my circle wanted to stay in. Now, that is not to say that the European Union doesn't have problems, because it does. I agree with the previous speaker that I think you're better off trying to fix those. I think in terms of the demographics of the vote, and I'm not sure how familiar you are with all this, just over 37% of the UK electorate voted to leave. it was a turnout slightly lower than they were expecting, partly due to the weather, which is an interesting curiosity. The demographics between leave and stay split very heavily. Young people almost exclusively voted to remain, or a lot of older people voted. There's a majority amongst older people to leave. The big demographic split was on tertiary education. So people with university education typically voted to stay, and those without typically voted to leave. The poorer voted to leave, which is interesting because they kind of voted for a recession. The wealthier voted to stay. The cities voted to stay, and the countryside voted to leave. It was, I'm sure, for future students of politics and history, this will be an absolutely fascinating study. I guess my view for the lessons for the world, from our business point of view, I think it's bad news because it creates uncertainty, and uncertainty is never good. As a lesson for the rest of the world, and it's something I've said to some of my American friends, this was a cry of anger from people who don't understand globalization and see a threat rather than an opportunity and a benefit from immigration. And it's very much what's propelled Donald Trump to being where he is with in the US at the moment. I think it will be sensible for our political elites, who are quite often distanced from ordinary people, to listen to that cry of anger. Typically, people were saying, we don't have the chance to influence what happens to our lives, as those are governed by political elites. We do have a chance here to make a protest vote. And I think a lot of people, following Brexit, there is a term called regrexit, which is people who regret voting Brexit. There's a lot of regrexit people who said, I'm going to do this as a protest, and never expected to win. And frankly, it's quite interesting that neither the government, the people in the government at the moment, both on the Leave and Remain side, nobody had a plan. Nobody expected this. And, the day before the election, the day before the referendum, the market strengthened and the pound strengthened because every analyst said, oh yeah, it's going to be, people are going to vote to remain. Nobody expected this. Nobody had a plan. So I think it's a message for, it's great talking to you. I wish we were talking to a room full of politicians here, because I would say, try and listen a bit more closely. I think you're out of touch.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. So, yes, we'll continue, but you can go if you want. Yes, okay. So, we start from here.
Yeah. Okay, I think basically such kind of decision is not easy to be taken, and I'm not sure. I think voting, it was made just to see how's actually the public view, but this kind of decision should be made by experts. I think the UK, they have done some actually, I would say, cost-benefit analysis. They look at the benefits and the drawbacks from staying or leaving the EU. We have not to actually ignore that the EU, it's a big actually economic integration. Third of the world economy actually comes from EU. Basically, from the economic and international business point of view, in the short term, UK will suffer, but in the long term, I think they will survive. Because, yes, the EU, being a member of the EU, will open, the foreign markets for you. So all those trade obstacles will be removed. So if you want to export your products to GCC countries, other countries, for sure you will be exempt from those traded, basically, like taxes, whatever. But I think that maybe UK, internally, nationally, they might have a problem, like with employment. So being a part of the EU, they will allow others to come and work. Maybe that could affect the employment actually, basically, or unemployment rate nationally. The other thing, we have not to ignore and forget that even the EU itself suffering They have a lot of financial problems. I mean, look, if we want to look at it, the big three economics in the EU, I think Germany, France, and Britain. And they have to inject billions of dollars for those poor, or what we say, economically suffering countries like Greece, like Italy, whatever. And I think that's simply the EU, they have to contribute to that, injected billions of dollars. So that's why I think it wasn't actually, that decision was made based on a very thorough study. I don't think it was made suddenly and just simply in one day. They were actually working on that, preparing, doing the whole actually basically work. And for sure they need to consult the people to make it more formal. But in the bottom line, I think, and briefly, I think in the short term they will suffer. But in the long term, I think, because it's an economy that have the ability to survive, they might lose some basically business opportunities, international business opportunities, when they actually becoming basically out of the EU. But they can actually compensate it later on by opening, different. They might even, I would say, because people they trust the EU, the UK, basically products. I think it's marketable. And from the marketing point of view, they have a very well-branded products that maybe will enable you they still to basically to recover in the long term. That's actually I think what I believe in. Thank you.
Yeah. So in my opinion, it's been proven that cooperation is something that is advantageous to any country in the world. I mean, we have Brexit going on, and then at the same time we're hearing about on the African continent, Morocco trying to rejoin the African Union. So it's like Maroc entry or something. So cooperation is always good for different sectors of a country's economy, politics, and survival. The United Kingdom has made its decision for whatever reason. It might not have been the most informed or the best thought out decision, but it doesn't mean the United Kingdom is not still part of Europe. It's just not part of the European Union. And it doesn't mean the United Kingdom is not part of the World Union. It still has responsibilities, and the world has responsibilities to the United Kingdom. So in my opinion, when it comes to the politics of it, that it just means that the United Kingdom is going to have to renegotiate a lot of relationships over the next 2 years as the exit happens. From a public health and humanitarian point of view, well, there are a lot of things that were being done by the EU as a bloc all over the world. What I think is going to happen is the United Kingdom will now have to think of where it will partner and where it will go it alone, where it will do things on its own as its brother's keeper, and where it can restrain itself to doing what is best for the United Kingdom. And quite honestly, I look at it that there's no right answer, but it's all about what the United Kingdom negotiates at the end of the day from now moving forward, and seeing where it can come in and where it can take things from the rest of the world, take things from other countries in Europe that it has, in quote, left behind.